Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive.
Yeah.
And today we are going into some pretty mind-bending territory with the Book of Pleasure, Self-Love, The Psychology of Ecstasy
Wow.
by Austin Osman Spare.
Okay.
This is
Tense.
this isn't your typical self-help book. It's more like a philosophical grenade exploding conventional ideas about pleasure, freedom, and even what it means to be human.
I like that philosophical grenade.
Yeah, get ready to question everything,
Oh, okay.
including some of your most deeply held beliefs.
Sounds fun.
Yeah.
So, what's really fascinating about Spare is that he doesn't just offer a different perspective. He constructs a whole new framework for understanding ourselves in the world.
Okay, so let's start unpacking some of these definitions.
Okay.
One that jumps out right away is Kia,
Okay.
which Spare describes as absolute freedom, unburdened by belief.
Right.
How can freedom be unburdened by belief?
Oh.
It sounds paradoxical.
Kia is about recognizing that true freedom comes from letting go of the things we cling to, even the ideas we have about freedom itself.
Huh.
It's a radical shift in perspective, moving away from the limitations of traditional structures and embracing a state of pure, unconditioned being.
So he's not just talking about freedom from external constraints, but also from the internal limitations of our own beliefs and desires.
Exactly. Spare contrasts Kia with his definition of virtue and vice, which are also quite unconventional.
Okay.
He defines virtue as pure art.
So suggesting a connection between creative expression and a life lived in accordance with one's true nature.
Yeah, but then he defines vice as fear, belief, faith control, even science.
He lumps all those things together as vices.
He does.
Why would he do that?
He's basically saying that anything that limits or defines us, whether it's a rigid belief system or a fear-based emotion, or even the seemingly objective pursuit of knowledge, can prevent us from experiencing true freedom.
That's a pretty bold statement. It makes you wonder if some of the things we consider good or virtuous might actually be holding us back.
Precisely. And Spare doesn't shy away from challenging some of our most cherished institutions.
Like,
He's particularly critical of religion, seeing it as a projection of our fears and limitations rather than a path to true liberation.
so where does religion fit into this framework of Kia, virtue, and vice?
Spare argues that religions are essentially fear-driven imaginations, often masking weakness and a lack of self-awareness.
Okay.
He even says, "No man has seen self at any time. We are what we believe,"
Wow.
implying that our beliefs shape our reality to a far greater extent than we realize.
It makes you think about how much of our reality is constructed by the beliefs we inherit or adopt, often without even questioning them.
Yeah,
So for Spare, true freedom requires questioning everything, even the things we hold most sacred.
absolutely. And Spare doesn't stop at critiquing specific religions. He goes on to say that even the concepts of heaven, hell, and purgatory are just different degrees of desire, ultimately undesirable for someone seeking the kind of radical freedom embodied by Kia.
So he's not just critiquing specific doctrines or dogmas. He's questioning the whole idea of belief systems as a path to happiness or fulfillment. He's saying that any system of belief, by its very nature, creates limitations and constraints.
Exactly. He criticizes faith, prayer, ceremonial magic, even the pursuit of knowledge as we traditionally understand it.
Wow.
He sees them all as potential traps leading us away from the direct experience of Kia. He even says the wise pleasure seeker gives up both virtue and vice and becomes a Kiist.
Okay, so what does it actually mean to be a Kiist? How do we put this radical philosophy into practice?
Well, that's where Spare introduces the concept of the death posture.
Death posture.
It sounds a bit morbid, but it's actually a technique for transcending duality and achieving a state of liberation.
Death posture. Now, I'm really intrigued. What does that involve? Is it some kind of ancient ritual or something?
It can be practiced in a few different ways, but the core idea is to induce a state of physical and mental exhaustion, allowing the conscious mind to quiet down and the subconscious to emerge.
Okay.
Spare describes lying on one's back, yawning, smiling while forgetting time and the meaninglessness of things.
So it's not about literally dying,
Yeah.
but rather about surrendering to a state of complete emptiness and letting go of all attachments.
Precisely. And he also describes more physical techniques like standing on tiptoe with arms bound, gazing at one's reflection, and visualizing a specific light.
Mm-hmm.
The point is to push beyond the limits of our normal physical and mental states.
It sounds intense. But what's the purpose of inducing this kind of exhaustion? What happens when we reach that state of emptiness?
Spare believed that by exhausting the conscious mind, we create a space for the subconscious to emerge.
Okay.
He saw the subconscious as a vast reservoir of creativity, wisdom, and untapped potential.
So it's about tapping into a deeper level of awareness that's usually obscured by our conscious thoughts and beliefs.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He believed that this deeper level of awareness was the key to accessing Kia, the state of absolute freedom.
Okay, so we've got Kia, this radical state of freedom,
Yes.
and we've got the death posture, a technique for quieting the conscious mind and accessing the subconscious.
Right.
But how do these two things connect? How does accessing the subconscious lead to Kia?
That's where things get even more interesting. Spare describes the death posture as leading to the annihilation of law and ascension from duality.
Okay.
He believed that our conscious minds are constantly imposing limitations on our experience, creating a sense of separation between ourselves and the world.
So he's saying that our conscious minds create kind of mental prison, trapping us in a limited and fragmented reality.
Yes, and he saw the death posture as a way to break free from this prison. By exhausting the conscious mind, we dissolve the boundaries of our ego and merge with a more expansive and interconnected reality.
So it's not just about quieting the mind, but about fundamentally changing our perception of reality.
Yes.
Transcending the limitations of our normal ego-bound awareness.
That's the essence of it. And Spare believed that this shift in perception was the key to experiencing Kia, the state of absolute freedom.
This is blowing my mind. But I have to ask, is this something that anyone can achieve? Or is it reserved for mystics and spiritual masters?
Spare believed that everyone has the potential to experience Kia.
Oh, okay. But it requires a willingness to challenge our assumptions and embrace a radical new way of seeing ourselves in the world.
So it's not about following a set of rules or dogmas, but about embarking on a personal journey of self-discovery and liberation.
Exactly. And that journey begins with recognizing the limitations of our own beliefs and desires.
So the first step towards freedom is recognizing the chains that bind us.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
And Spare goes on to describe these chains in more detail, outlining what he calls cloudy enemies.
Cloudy enemies. What are those?
Essentially, they are internal obstacles that arise from stagnant self-hypnosis and rigid belief systems. They are the voices in our heads that tell us who we are, what we can and cannot do, and what is right and wrong.
So it's not just external forces that limit us, but also our own internal patterns of thought and belief.
Exactly. And Spare believed that these internal limitations were often even more powerful than external constraints. He argued that we are often our own worst enemies, holding ourselves back with fear, doubt, and limiting beliefs. So how do we overcome these cloudy enemies? How do we break free from the mental chains that bind us?
Spare suggests a few different techniques, but they all involve a process of self-awareness and a willingness to challenge the assumptions that underlie our beliefs.
So it's about becoming aware of the stories we tell ourselves.
Yes.
The scripts that run our lives. And then questioning whether those stories are actually true or just limiting beliefs that we've inherited or adopted.
Precisely. Spare believed that by bringing these limiting beliefs to the surface and examining them critically, we could begin to dissolve their power over us.
It's like shining a light into the dark corners of our minds and exposing the shadows that hold us back.
Yeah.
But isn't there a danger in questioning everything? Doesn't that lead to a kind of nihilism or despair?
Spare didn't believe so. He saw the process of questioning as a necessary step towards liberation.
Yeah.
He argued that by letting go of our attachment to fixed beliefs, we open ourselves to a more expansive and fluid reality, one that is constantly evolving and unfolding.
So it's not about rejecting all beliefs.
No, but rather about holding them lightly, recognizing that they are just tools for navigating the world, not absolute truths that define who we are.
That's a great way to put it. Spare believed that true freedom comes from a place of openness and curiosity, a willingness to question everything and to embrace the unknown.
This is truly groundbreaking stuff.
Yeah.
I'm starting to see why Spare's work is so challenging and so rewarding.
Yeah.
He's not giving us easy answers, but rather inviting us to embark on a radical journey of self-discovery and transformation.
Exactly. And that journey is not for the faint of heart. It requires courage, honesty, and a deep commitment to uncovering our true nature, even if it means challenging everything we thought we knew about ourselves and the world.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground in this first part of our deep dive, but we're just scratching the surface of Spare's fascinating and often mind-bending philosophy.
Indeed, and we've only just begun to explore the practical implications of his ideas.
Stay tuned for part 2, where we'll delve into Spare's unique approach to manifesting desires and shaping reality through the power of the subconscious mind. So picking up where we left off, Spare's exploration of the subconscious is where his ideas take a really practical turn. He wasn't content with just theorizing about freedom and liberation.
Right.
He wanted to provide tools for actually experiencing these states.
Yeah, it's one thing to talk about the limitations of belief and the power of the subconscious, but it's another thing entirely to actually break free from those limitations and tap into that power.
Exactly. And that's where his concept of sigils comes in. Remember, he described sigils as these abstract symbols that represent our desires,
Right.
a way of communicating directly with the subconscious mind in a language that it understands.
But it's more than just visualization or positive thinking, right?
Yeah.
There's a specific methodology involved in creating and activating sigils.
Absolutely. Spare outlines a process of taking a very specific statement of desire, like, this is my wish to experience the freedom of Kia,
Okay.
and then systematically reducing it down to its essential letters, eventually combining them into this unique glyph. He provides a really interesting example in the book, his sigil for woman, which demonstrates this process beautifully.
It sounds almost like a form of alchemy, transforming words into symbols that hold a concentrated charge of desire.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
And the key Spare emphasizes is to make the sigil abstract enough that it doesn't trigger a bunch of conscious associations.
Right.
It needs to bypass the conscious mind's filters and operate on a purely subconscious level.
So it's like sneaking past the gatekeepers of the conscious mind and delivering the message directly to the deeper levels of our being.
Precisely. And to activate the sigil Spare suggests entering a state of vacuity.
Okay.
Remember that state of mental stillness we discussed earlier, which can be achieved through various means like exhaustion, meditation, or even indulging in certain pleasures.
So he's not prescribing a one-size-fits-all approach.
Right.
He's encouraging people to find what works best for them to quiet the conscious mind and access that deeper state of awareness.
Exactly. And once you've achieved this state of vacuity, you visualize the sigil intensely, allowing its energy to permeate your being, and then you forget about it.
That's the part that always trips me up. If it's something I really want, why would I try to forget about it?
Well,
Wouldn't that decrease the chances of it manifesting?
that's where the trust in the subconscious comes in.
Okay.
Spare believed that by consciously forgetting the sigil,
Okay.
we allow it to work its magic in the depths of our minds, free from the interference of our conscious doubts and anxieties. It's like planting a seed and then trusting the earth to nourish it and help it grow.
So it's about surrendering control,
Yes.
letting go of the need to micromanage the process,
Right.
and trusting that the subconscious mind will do its work.
Exactly. And Spare claimed to have achieved some pretty remarkable results with this technique, from healing illnesses to influencing events to bestowing wisdom upon those who sought it.
He was a bold character, that's for sure. And while his claims might sound a bit far-fetched to some,
Right.
I think there's a growing recognition that the subconscious mind plays a powerful role in shaping our reality.
Yeah.
I mean, modern psychology is increasingly recognizing the influence of the subconscious on our thoughts, behaviors, and even our physical health.
Absolutely. And Spare was exploring these ideas decades ago in a very unique and insightful way.
Yeah.
But it's important to remember that for Spare, sigils weren't just about manifesting material desires or achieving worldly success. He believed they could also be used for spiritual growth and self-discovery.
He even talked about using sigils to access the wisdom of past incarnations and connect with the primordial forces of the universe.
Right. He believed that the subconscious mind wasn't just a personal reservoir, but a gateway to a vast and interconnected realm of consciousness, a realm that held the keys to unlocking our true potential.
It's a mind-blowing concept, isn't it?
It is.
It suggests that we're not just limited to our current physical form and conscious awareness.
Yeah.
There's a whole universe within us waiting to be explored.
And Spare believed that the key to unlocking this inner universe was, you guessed it, self-love. Remember, he called self-love the ultimate doctrine, a radical idea, especially in the context of his time. He was writing in the early 20th century when traditional morality and religious dogmas still held a lot of sway.
And he was basically saying, forget all that. True happiness and freedom come from embracing your desires and pleasing yourself without shame or guilt.
Exactly. He was challenging the very foundations of morality as it was understood at the time, suggesting that true morality lay in aligning with our authentic selves, not in conforming to external rules and expectations.
But wasn't he worried about people misinterpreting his message and just indulging in selfish hedonism?
He addressed this directly, actually.
Oh, okay.
He distinguished between true self-love, which is about recognizing our inherent worth and divinity,
Okay.
and the kind of superficial pleasure-seeking that ultimately leads to emptiness and dissatisfaction.
So it's not about indulging every whim or avoiding all responsibility.
Right.
It's about recognizing that we are worthy of love and happiness, and that by cultivating self-love, we can create a more fulfilling and meaningful life.
Precisely. And Spare believed that this kind of radical self-acceptance was essential for unlocking the true power of the subconscious mind.
Okay.
He argued that when we are at war with ourselves, filled with self-doubt and shame, we create a kind of psychic resistance that blocks the flow of creative energy.
So it's like trying to drive a car with a parking brake on.
Yeah,
You might be able to move forward a bit,
right.
but you're not going to reach your full potential.
That's a great analogy. And Spare believed that self-love was the key to releasing that parking brake, allowing us to tap into the full power and creativity of the subconscious mind.
But it's not just about personal power, is it?
Yeah,
Spare also saw self-love as a path to spiritual liberation.
absolutely. He believed that by cultivating a deep and unwavering love for ourselves,
Okay.
we could transcend the limitations of the ego and connect with a more universal consciousness, a consciousness that he identified with Kia.
So self-love is not just about feeling good about ourselves.
Right.
It's about recognizing our interconnectedness with all of existence.
Yeah.
Seeing ourselves as part of a greater whole.
Exactly. And Spare believed that this realization was the ultimate key to happiness and fulfillment.
Okay.
He saw the pursuit of external pleasures as a kind of distraction,
Right.
a way of avoiding the deeper truth of our own being.
It's like we're searching for something outside of ourselves that can only be found within.
That's the paradox of the human condition, isn't it? We're
Yeah.
constantly searching for something that we already possess.
Right.
And Spare believed that self-love was the key to ending that search, to realizing that everything we truly desire is already within us.
This is incredibly profound stuff.
It is.
It really challenges the way we typically think about ourselves and the world.
It does. And it's not always easy to digest. Spare's work is challenging, provocative,
Yeah.
and often unsettling.
Yeah.
But it's also incredibly liberating. He's not offering a set of rules to follow, but rather a path of self-discovery, a way of awakening to the truth of our own being.
And that path is paved with self-love,
Yes.
acceptance,
Uh-huh.
and a willingness to challenge everything we thought we knew about ourselves and the world.
Exactly. It's about embracing the unknown, stepping outside of our comfort zones, and allowing ourselves to be transformed by the journey.
This has been an incredible exploration of Spare's ideas so far,
Yeah.
but there's still so much to unpack.
Yeah.
We've talked about his radical concepts, his unique techniques,
Yeah.
and his profound insights into the nature of self-love and spiritual liberation.
But we've only just begun to scratch the surface.
Okay.
In the final part of our deep dive, we'll explore some of the practical applications of Spare's teachings, as well as the potential pitfalls and ethical considerations of this kind of magical work.
Okay.
We'll also touch on the ways Spare's ideas have influenced contemporary thought and culture, leaving you with some final thought-provoking questions to ponder.
Okay, so we've spent the last two parts of this deep dive
Yeah.
exploring the mind-bending world of Austin Osman Spare and his Book of Pleasure. And we've covered his radical philosophy,
Yeah.
his unique techniques like sigils and the death posture,
Right.
and his profound emphasis on self-love.
Yes.
It's a lot to process, but now I'm curious.
Yeah.
How do we actually apply all of this in our daily lives?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
Spare wasn't a big fan of rigid rules or step-by-step instructions.
Right.
He believed in principles, not recipes.
Okay.
But if there's one key takeaway that we can apply right now, it's the importance of radical self-awareness.
He's constantly urging us to know thyself, but it's clear that he means something much deeper than just knowing our favorite color or Myers-Briggs type.
Absolutely. Spare's talking about a fearless and honest exploration of our desires, our
Right.
beliefs,
Uh-huh.
and the often hidden motivations that drive our actions.
Okay.
He wants us to peel back the layers of conditioning, the societal programming,
Right.
and all the shoulds that we've internalized
Yeah.
to discover who we truly are beneath it all.
And he believed that this journey of self-discovery wasn't about harsh self-criticism or judgment.
Right.
He actually saw pleasure as a guide.
That's right. Spare believed that by honestly exploring what brings us not just fleeting superficial pleasures,
Right.
but the things that truly light us up,
Uh-huh.
we can gain profound insights into our deepest desires and
Uh-huh.
our true path in life.
This is where his critique of traditional morality really comes into play.
Yes.
He saw so many moral systems as being based on fear, repression, and a denial of our natural instincts.
Yeah.
And he felt that this led to a kind of spiritual stagnation, preventing us from accessing our full potential.
He's suggesting that by embracing our authentic selves, including our desires,
Right.
we open ourselves up to a more vibrant and fulfilling existence.
Which brings us back to his concept of the neither.
Right.
It's about transcending that black and white good versus bad thinking and embracing a more holistic and nuanced perspective.
Spare believed that this kind of non-judgmental awareness is crucial for accessing the creative power of the subconscious mind.
Okay.
It's about silencing that inner critic, the one that's constantly telling us what we should or shouldn't do, and allowing our desires to flow freely without censorship.
So it's about giving ourselves permission to be who we are, to desire what we desire without shame or guilt.
Right.
That in itself is a radical act, especially in a world that is so full of judgment and shoulds.
It is radical. And from this foundation of self-love and acceptance, Spare believed we could then start working with techniques like sigils to consciously shape our reality. But even with something like sigil magic, he emphasized intention and discernment.
He's very clear that sigils are potent tools,
Yeah.
and they shouldn't be used lightly.
Absolutely. He cautions against using them to harm others or to manipulate situations for purely selfish gain. He recognized the power of our desires and warned that using sigils without a clear understanding of our motivations could have unintended consequences.
It's a bit like that old saying,
Yeah.
Be careful what you wish for, you just might get it.
Exactly. Spare believed that true magic was about aligning our desires with our highest good. Not about ego gratification or trying to control other people. He saw it as a path of self-discovery and spiritual growth, a way of becoming more aligned with our true nature and our purpose in life.
His ideas have been hugely influential in contemporary occult and magical traditions.
They have.
But I think it's important to acknowledge that they've also been misinterpreted or taken out of context at times.
That's often the case with radical thinkers who challenge the status quo. Some have interpreted Spare's emphasis on self-love and the rejection of traditional morality as a justification for hedonism or nihilism.
But that seems like a pretty shallow reading of his work.
It does.
Spare was a complex and nuanced thinker.
Yes.
He wasn't offering easy answers or a get-what-you-want approach to magic.
You're absolutely right. He was challenging us to question our assumptions, to delve deeper into the mysteries of our own being, and to take responsibility for the creation of our own reality.
He was asking us to look within, not to seek answers from external authorities or dogmas. In that sense, his work feels incredibly relevant today.
It does.
In a world that's still grappling with issues of authority, individual freedom, and the search for meaning in a rapidly changing world.
I agree. Spare's emphasis on individual self-discovery and empowerment feels like a powerful antidote to the rigid ideologies and external pressures that we often face.
He's like a voice whispering in the wilderness, urging us to break free from the mental cages we've built for ourselves and embrace the wild, untamed potential that lies within.
That's a beautiful way to put it. And while Spare might not have all the answers, he certainly offers a compelling invitation to explore the mysteries of our own being and the power of the subconscious mind to shape our reality.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive.
We have.
From the philosophical to the practical.
Yes.
From the esoteric to the deeply personal.
Yes.
It's been quite a journey through the labyrinthine world of Austin Osman Spare's Book of Pleasure.
It certainly has. And I hope our listener has found it as thought-provoking and insightful as we have.
Spare's work is not for everyone. It can be challenging, controversial, and at times even a bit disturbing. But for those who are seeking a path of radical self-discovery and a more authentic way of being in the world, Spare's teachings offer a wealth of wisdom and inspiration.
He encourages us to question everything, to embrace our desires, and to tap into that hidden wellspring of creativity and power that lies within each of us.
And ultimately, I think that's the legacy of Spare's work.
Yes.
A call to awaken to our true selves and to consciously create the lives we desire. It's a call to embrace pleasure, not as an end in itself, but as a guide on the path to freedom and fulfillment.
And on that note, we'll bring this deep dive to a close. But as Spare himself might say, the journey of self-discovery is never truly over. It's an ongoing process of exploration, experimentation, and the relentless pursuit of what truly brings us joy.
Thank you for joining us on this adventure into the mind of Austin Osman Spare. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.